Hello and welcome to the webinar series on Mutation Surveyor software by Soft Genetics. The focus of this webinar is how to make and use custom settings files in the software. The creation of custom settings files allows for the establishment of templates that can be quickly loaded without the need for manual adjustment of the settings. A configuration file can be created for each type of analysis and can help ensure consistency when shared between users. Please keep in mind that when a saved project file is loaded, project settings are updated to those used in that project, which may not be the appropriate settings for the next project run. Loading configuration files can help guarantee the proper settings are always applied in your project. Configuration files are also utilized in the Mutation AutoRun Tool when wanting to apply settings different from those last used by the software. So where in Mutation Surveyor software can you apply custom settings? Configuration files can be created for three different features of the software: the Mutation Project Settings for setting your project parameters, the Variation Tracks for annotation display and mutation call filter settings, and the Custom Report for quickly generating customized output. Let's take a look together at how to create and load each type of configuration file. Both Mutation Project and Variation Tracks configuration files can be created without running a project, so we will start by examining these more closely. First, we can create a custom settings file for the Mutation Project Settings. We need to make sure this is done in a fresh instance of the software with no project open. Go to Process, Settings. I recommend starting with default settings, which can be done by clicking the default button to start. Next, go through each tab of the Settings dialog and make any adjustments as needed. Please view our introductory overview webinar for additional information on the available settings. When done, click the Save Settings button located at the bottom of the dialog. Set the location for where to save the file and enter a name for the configuration file. Please note that all configuration files are saved in the same .ini format, so it may be best to include the type of settings in the file name. Click Save to save the custom settings file. This process can be repeated for each type of project analysis needed. Now that we have a configuration file saved for the Mutation Project Settings, let's take a look at how to load it. Loading a Mutation Project Settings file must be done prior to running a project and is recommended to be done prior to loading any files, as some settings may define how files should be loaded. In a new instance of Mutation Surveyor, go to Process, Settings. Click on the Load button located at the bottom of the dialog. Navigate to the folder location where the configuration file is stored. Select the needed file, making sure the selection is appropriate for loading into Mutation Project Settings, and click Open. The settings have now been automatically adjusted to those defined in the file. If you have imported annotation from external databases as variation tracks, a Variation Tracks configuration file can be created for a group of selected tracks to query before or after running a project. To create a custom configuration file without running a project, go to Process, Query Reference Tracks. Select the tracks to query and click Run Query. This opens the Variation Tracks settings. To create a configuration file after running a project, click the Variation Tracks settings icon located in the top toolbar. With the Variation Tracks settings open, set any filter and report display options for each track. Please view our webinar titled Application of Annotation from External Databases to Mutation Surveyor Projects for more information regarding how to adjust these settings. When ready, click Save Settings located at the bottom and then select Save to File. Choose where to save the file, enter a name for the file, and then click Save. This process can be repeated for each group of commonly queried tracks. To load a configuration file for the variation tracks, we first need to ensure the appropriate tracks have been selected for query under the correct genome build. Then, from the Variation Track Settings dialog, click on Load Settings, located at the bottom of the dialog, and then select Load from File. Navigate to the location where the configuration file is stored, select the file, and click Open. The selected settings are now updated to those specified in the loaded configuration file. To learn how to set up the variation tracks, please view our Reference and Track Manager tool webinar. The third location in the software where we can create custom settings files is the Custom Report. This can only be done after running a project. Open the Custom Report settings by going to Reports, Custom Report. Go through each tab of the Settings dialog and adjust any settings as necessary. Starting with default settings may help this process. Please ensure settings located on the Others tab are set to your preference, as these settings affect output. Additional insight on available settings can be gained by viewing our Custom Report Options webinar. A report can always be quickly generated to confirm output display prior to saving the settings. To readjust anything after generating a report, click the Settings icon to return to the settings. When done, click the Save button located at the bottom of the dialog. The default location for saving this configuration file is the report folder within the user local directory. You can keep the destination set to the report folder, or you can adjust the location as needed. Assign the configuration file a name and click Save. Several different template files can be quickly created by returning to the Settings dialog, adjusting the settings for a different output display, and then saving as a new configuration file. To load a settings template for the report, open the report settings by going to Reports, Custom Report, and then click the Load button located at the bottom of the dialog. Navigate to where the configuration file was saved, select the preferred file, and click Open. All of the report settings are now updated to reflect those defined in your template file. The file name of the configuration file loaded to generate the report will be listed in the report header. Finally, let's take a look at where else these configuration files can be loaded. Mutation Project configuration files and Custom Report configuration files may be loaded into the Mutation AutoRun Tool to define parameters and output for projects. You can use the Log File Wizard located under the Tool menu to incorporate these files. On the Input Project Settings step, Mutation Project Settings can be loaded by clicking the Advanced button located near the bottom left corner of the page and then setting the location to the preferred configuration file. Custom Report configuration files can be loaded on the Input Report Information step by setting the path to where these files are located. Select the preferred file or files to use for the report generation of this project. A report will be generated for each selected configuration file. For additional information regarding how to use the Mutation AutoRun Tool, please view our available webinar, Mutation AutoRun Tool. Thank you for watching this short video on how to create customized settings files in Mutation Surveyor software. For more information or to request a free 35-day trial, please visit softgenetics.com or send an email to info@softgenetics.com. All technical inquiries can be sent via email to our technical support group at tech_support@softgenetics.com.